Introduced early on in the morning is a chair and Fulbright professor of communication at Howard University. And then the other speaker on there is actually Dr. Andrea Martinez-Celis from Spain. She's all the way here from Madrid. And so she has been working with the Edgar Ridley Associates. After that, after their presentation, we're going to take just about a 10-minute break while we bring in Dr. Ridley on Zoom. So, but right now, we're going to ask Dr. Langmia and to come forward. I think he already has his.
I'd like to have my water back. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Greeting from the Mecca, Howard University.
It's you?
I'm also suffering from a bit of jet lag. I'm a Pan-Africanist, so I'm just from Nairobi.
Wow.
And also from Makerere University in Uganda. For a lecture series on my two recent books, some of them forward written by Dr. Molefi Kete Asante. And this is Black Communication Theory, Volume 1 and Volume 2. There was nothing like that on planet Earth. And talking about symbolism and mythologies, we decided to come up with something like that because we were being pregnant. We actually sucked the breasts of the Wests for too long as PhD students with Western theories. So when I came up at Howard University and I graduated, I came up with this Black communication theory. It's now running to its volume 2 right now. Afrocentric research methodologies, because we noticed that most of the methodologies, research methodologies, that we were studying as PhD students were all westernized. Survey, content analysis, interviews, focus group. That's not how you get knowledge from Africa. You don't want to send a woman to go and interview a chief or a king, because interview methodology wants one-on-one, whether it is male or female, and does not give room for orature, does not give room for people who have lived the earth more than you. So it is these kind of books with epistemologies, ontologies, axiologies, based on Egyptologies that we published. And so I was giving lectures on the continent of Africa on this. By the way, my name is Kehbuma Langmia. Nothing westernized in the name. Coming from a country that the Portuguese name Cameroon, which I don't call Cameroon, it's Ambas Bay. Talk about symbolism and mythologies. You cannot live in a country and a white man come and give the name of that country and for you to accept. It is illogical. My father never went to school. He refused to give me the name Vincent, Albert, or Emmanuel. He said, your name is Kehbuma Langmia. And there was a meaning for that name. Talking about symbolism and mythologies, there was a meaning. And so when I was reading Edgar Ridley, I was thinking about that. So I gave a call to Molefi Kete Asante a few weeks ago. And this is what I said to him. Why is it that the continent that gave birth to humanity, civilizations to the world, where philosophers, the so-called philosophers like Aristotle, were taught by masters like Imhotep, what happened that we became so bestialized in the world? What came of this black inferiority? What happened? Dr. Molefi Asante told me this question was asked to him by Professor Isidore Okpeu some time ago. What happened to us if we one time ruled the world? Why is it that we are always suffering from the heavy accentism you have a heavy accent, or where are you fromism. You open your mouth, where are you fromism? And so the only way for me to fight the negative symbol, to fight the issue of methodologies that have been created for all the black people, was for me to refuse to be baptized. Jerry Rawlings said, do everything to Christianize me, but don't Europeanize me. That is why I have devoted myself to work, teach, and learn at Howard University. Because that is where I discover myself. I have refused to be brainwashed and brain dry clean by westernization. It was brain dry clean because when I walk the streets of Nairobi, all the symbols, as we talk about symbols, the billboards are in English, whereas Swahili is the official language of East Africa. I see the Chinese symbols and the English language is hidden beneath. And I ask myself, what happened to the black race? In fact, when I was publishing my recent work, Black Race and White Supremacy Saga, I called Molefi Kete Asante. He said, there's only one race on planet Earth, and that's the black race. Delete all the expressions of white race. There's nothing like the white race. They are white ancestry. And he warned me that with Sheikh Anta Diop, who says no nation can ever develop by using the language of another nation. Unquote. I repeat, no nation can ever develop by using the language of another nation. And so when I see the English language or the French language or the Portuguese language, when I'm flying Kenyan Airways from New York to Nairobi, I call the hostesses to come to my seat. And I said, look, I don't see Swahili on the menu. This is symbolism. What's going on? I look at the movie menu. I see Hollywood, Bollywood. I don't see Nollywood. Where are the African films? Yet you are carrying Africans. When the food is served, I don't see ugali. I see Western food. I see the name tag of the hostesses. They are all English. And I say, what happened to your Kenyan name? And so I said, I need an audience with your manager. I need an audience with your manager. Otherwise, I will make this go viral. Boycott Kenyan Airways. This is the only way we can respect Edgar Ridley, telling us that the only way for us to avoid the superstition, the war, which is presently even going on in Sudan, nobody's talking about it. It's about Ukraine. These are the things that bring tears to my eyes as a communication scholar at Howard University, who is a visiting scholar at almost 4 universities on the continent of Africa. I will be in Nigeria North in June, and then I fly to Ghana and then back to Kenya before I come back to Howard University, because I'm trying my best for us to decolonize the mind of Ngugi, what Siongo said. And I tell my students, the PhD students, you cannot go and collect data using English language in the village with those mothers in the marketplace. That's right. Is that not true? They say yes. I said, look, give me the authors. I go to the libraries of the universities in Africa. 95% of the books are published by Westerners. I refer them to the speech by Molefi Kete Asante in South Africa that there is no African university in Africa. What we have in Africa is pan-European universities in Africa. Please clap for me. And so when I said it, they Google Molefi Kete Asante, and they see that speech, which he authorized for me to publish in the book that just came out on African Research Method for African Scholarship. So this is my own role, to at least follow in the footpath of Molefi Kete Asante and Edgar Raleigh. Coming back to the idea that I live in the Republic of Imagination. To echo Asa Nafisi, the Iranian writer, I live in the Republic of Imagination, where I have apartments to lease. I say this to give huge thanks to Professor Molefi Kete Asante for inviting me. This is my first time here at the Institute to speak to my brothers and sisters. That standing before you is somebody called Kehbuma Langmia from the Ambas Bay in West Africa, where when the Portuguese came, because of symbols, they saw rivers of prawns, and in Portuguese it's called Rio dos Camaros, meaning people who are like prawns. So they did not give us the opportunity to name ourselves. They imposed it on us. And since we have not decolonized, de-westernized, de-enslaved our mind, we still keep that name in the map today. So I am not from Cameroon. I tell my students, I'm the child of the mother continent of all continents, because humankind started in Africa. So don't tag me as a Nigerian or an Ivorian or a Ugandan and so on. I am just your brother and sister. And when I meet my African American brothers on the continent, I don't want to hear the where are you fromism or the heavy accentism. It is just a combination of consonants and vowels of the Western language. I will stop here even though I have something, but thank you so much. I want to give room for my house. Thank you.
Okay, Sister Andrea Celis, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me open my presentation.
Do you have a? She has
I did to be here.
It's coming up.
Should be there.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, it's the PDF.
I see it.
I don't know what a PowerPoint is. Maybe with a PDF it's okay.
Do you see
Here,
the one?
yes, there we
Okay.
go. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much to Edgar, to Linda for inviting me. Thank you so much, Molefi. That's a real pleasure and an honor to be here. I'm so happy to be here. And I wanted to say sorry because English is not my first language, and also because my auntie Julia is here with me, so I'm kind of translating all the information quickly to her. That's why I'm commenting sometimes. Translating, that's the reason why. It's a pleasure in person as well, because I really wanted to come in person from Madrid to meet people that also admires Edgar and his work, and it's amazing because in Spain I feel so isolated. Nobody talks about this topic, so I'm so happy and I feel like at home, honestly. And I'll be here for a few hours, so that's amazing. Thank you so much. In order to start my presentation, I wanted to start with a question, which is, what would the world be like today if Jesus Christ could have been depicted as a black woman? What do you think? Especially now that it's the International Women's Day, do you think the world could be as racist and sexist as it is? Because it's the most famous symbol from which everything started, I think, or almost everything. Actually, if we think symptomatically, a man born in Palestine at that time could be someone like this, actually like this man. Like brown skin, black hair, black eyes, but because of symbolic thinking based on white supremacy, of course, God must be white, must be blonde, blue-eyed. What Adolf Hitler called the Aryan race, which is very present still nowadays, actually even more nowadays than ever since then, unfortunately, because of the situation that you have, especially here with Donald Trump. So, unfortunately, actually, if you think about it, the current conflict in Palestine, for example, talking about Palestine, began because of mythology. Palestine is believed to be the holy land for 3 different religions. And these are just some examples, but symbolic thinking only causes destructive behavior, as we have seen throughout history, and will lead to the end of civilization if we do not stop it. That's the first message, and that's right. You know, but you perfectly know. But I wanted to point out this. After breaking the ice with this question, sorry, I'm very nervous. Let me introduce myself. My name is Andrea Martinez-Celis in Spanish. I work as a university professor in Madrid, in Spain. I'm also an intercultural competence trainer. I was already introduced so quickly. I have been living and volunteering in Ghana, in Egypt, and Morocco. I collaborate with Edgar Ridley and Associates, implementing the symptomatic thought process to effectively address the inherent issues in the intercultural conflict. And where you can see my book that has been just published based on my PhD. I wanted to estimate a bit the context. Because when I was doing my PhD, I was invited to the United Nations General Assembly 2 years ago already, and it was actually there when I met Edgar and Linda. They listened to my presentation, and this when they talked me about the symptomatic thought process. I read the books and the articles. I couldn't stop reading it. It was amazing because I was really busy at that time because of the PhD, but when I started reading, I was really surprised. It was like many questions that have been in my mind during my whole life were answered, basically. So the first thing that came to my mind was that Edgar's theory should be taught across all disciplines, and we have seen today we came from many different backgrounds, and it's applicable to everything, and that's amazing. And the second one, how dangerous it is to tell the truth, how brave Edgar is. I think is spreading his word, and how all of us, especially those who live in the United States because of the current situation. That's right. So you are truly, really, really brave. Don't stop doing it. So I was thinking about these questions when I was reading the anthology. The questions that were answered, like why people behave in specific ways, such as, for example, why are they so racist despite all the violent historical events that we have been through already? The answer was very clear, symbolically instead of symptomatically, as you know. So I felt my life change after understanding this. That's why I really wanted to be part of this change with Edgar and Linda. And I wanted to start by the basis when I met them. As you can see, this is the book. My thesis was about intercultural competence in internationalization of higher education, and that's why I wanted to start this by this topic, because when I was researching about it, I realized, well, I was so happy, like, intercultural studies is going to be really, truly intercultural, and it's not, as you know. I realized most of model of intercultural competence for fashion nowadays are all of them, or most of them, are based on Western culture, as we have been talking about. And they talk about the idea of what we call white diversity. So even people who live in this Western society are not represented in those models of intercultural competence. For example, the skin color is not mentioned. So, and it is not important. Doesn't matter. We all have the same path of these kind of models of intercultural competence. But is it realistic? I don't think so. And most of them come from the United States, as you already know, which it's, well, I don't need to say anything else. more than me, but doesn't make any sense. So in summary, regarding this topic, there is a clear lack of research in countries outside the global north. And basically, intercultural studies are really culturally based. So what can we do? So when working on how to apply the symptomatic thought process into higher education, this model, the model of comprehensive internationalization developed by the American Council on Education, came to my mind because it was kind of the basis in my PhD. So imagine if we started thinking symptomatically in these dimensions. If the leadership, structure, policies are not based on white supremacy. Just imagine. The staff of universities would be truly diverse. And Black people would not suffer from judgment and prejudices based on mythology and superstition. Black people would have important positions within the institutions. Moreover, within the syllabus of the different disciplines, Black scientists and writers, for example, poets, etc., could be studied as role models because it's what they are, and not even not mentioned in many disciplines. What else? Regarding the mobility and partnership part, which is also key in this internationalization, westernized thing, could be not biased by the idea that knowledge is produced by white people in the global north, which is the idea. And therefore, Africa and Black people would be involved equally, truly equally, and not in that sense of this knowledge of white knowledge. I would call it white knowledge. I like that term. If the symptomatic thought process could have been applied to these internationalization models, interculturality could be closer to reality, because the current models take for granted the socio-economic and cultural differences. So thinking symptomatically opposed to symbolically results in a willingness to face reality, which is something that those in power do not want to do, as you already know. And that's why I also wanted to talk about governments as well. Is it going? They don't want me to talk about governments. Yay! That's why. That's why it doesn't work. So, unfortunately, what we can see nowadays are public figures who do not hide their fascist and racist political ideas. This picture is the most recent and evident fact. We all know that what that Nazi salute means, and we are talking about historical events that occurred less than 100 years ago. But nevertheless, citizens prefer to believe the false myths that these politicians say about Black people, about women, etc., 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 and deny history, deny reality. That is, people think symbolically instead of symptomatically, relying on the neurological misadventure, which is nothing but the avoidance of true facts, such as history. So, symptomatic thought, applying this to governments, to politics, symptomatic thought could help to understand why citizens act and behave in a specific way. For example, challenging and deconstructing the symbolic thinking of societies who have voted for the most fascist parties. So we can actually take advantage of this, and now it's the best moment to do so, as we have seen. Well, too late after the elections, but anyway, never too late to change. I also wanted to mention the usefulness of symptomatic thought process in business, because symbolic thinking affects business performance and productivity through the behaviors of leaders, as you already know, who play a critical role in eliminating this behavior. Further, in an organization, you have already mentioned this, so and I'm not an expert in business actually, so but productivity and growth should evolve from technology. We have been talking about this a few minutes ago. Nevertheless, this does not happen because they are isolated from the cultural problems which emanate from the world experiences. So this is why I also wanted to share my experience in. Oh, I touched something. Sorry. Oh my God. I close it. Oh yeah. Oh, okay, there is. Oh, here is okay. I close it in the computer, but not here. Okay, no problem. I can go on. Okay, so yeah, I wanted the next one. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a bit about my experience teaching at university. Sorry. I teach mainly 3 different subjects, and I wanted to say how I do it, applying the symptomatic thought process like to the everyday life. For example, I teach English as a second language to my students, and my main objective when teaching English is to raise awareness on colonialism. That is in line with we have already, you have already mentioned that, so that's perfect. And on the fact that English is the official language of many African countries. So when I teach English language and its didactic, for example, which is for future teachers of English, primary, pre-primary and secondary education, I emphasize that, for example, there is no one accent that is better than another. There is no English that is superior to another. And this is just a fake belief, it's a symbol. And actually this gives more value and prestige to white countries. To this. So if we do this, we go on thinking symbolically, we will take part in the 21st century colonialism that is still going on. So even just doing think we've already been part of this because it's true. I also teach intercultural language teaching to master students, and my focus is mainly that since English is an international language for historical reasons, colonialism and many other reasons, and is spoken in many countries, let's then teach and challenge the cultures, values and traditions beyond England, United States, well, the white England, the white United States, the white Australia. Let's promote other ways of understanding the world beyond the white lenses. And thus overcoming white supremacy, because teachers are the future. So, let's see if it works. Oh, okay, it's working now here, but not there.
Can you put it on full screen?
In here, right?
Go to slideshow. Go ahead, go to slideshow again.
Okay, and here, if I move it here, it works.
Go to slideshow.
Do it for myself. Sorry. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, there we go.
Sorry, go back.
Well, I wanted to also to talk about my day-to-day life. I was introduced. I'm a doctor in linguistics, so when observing behaviors around me, I could check that people behaviors basically do not make any sense because they are based on myths, they are based on beliefs without any scientific basis. And that's why I wanted to start my, actually part of my research that I wanted to mention by mentioning language. As Ridley states, language is a symptom that can become symbolic when it is mythologized. And I wanted to mention some expressions in Spanish, some sentences that we use nowadays, that they are used by people who actually consider themselves progressive, inclusive, and all of this, but who actually define themselves as non-racist, left-wing people, blah, 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 but they still use this kind of expressions. So I wanted to start by how we define black people. We normally say negrito, which the translation would be something like little negro, something like it, instead of saying black, which was as actually mentioned before, which on the one hand, it's a way to, how do you say, to infantilize, to soften the meaning of black because it's considered negative on the one hand, and to infantilize black people, like just because of consider them inferior. So that's the underlying, I think, idea that is in our symbolic behavior. What else? I also wanted to mention the word mulatto. We also have it in English, it's actually the same, mulatto, which is, before reading Edgar's book, I never thought about it. But mulatto means this, well, you know the meaning, the son or daughter of a black person and a white person, but the origin of the word comes from the mix between a donkey and a mule. Yeah. The black person is considered the mule, the slave. Yeah. And the donkey refers to the white person who is considered stupid because of being attractive to a black person or because of being in love with a black person. Isn't this offensive? Yeah. And that's the origin. We use it every day. Every day. Instead of saying black, we say negrito, mulatto, whatever terms, which is really, really offensive. I also want to mention other expressions that we use. Well, I don't, but people use in Spain very, very often, like every day. Trabajar como un negro, which means working as a negro, is used every day. I mean, it's very, very common. We also have hacer de negro. The literal translation would be something like in black, and means working anonymously for the behalf of other people. It is similar to the word in English, ghostwriter. Yeah, but instead of said, we say black. Yeah, black, working as a black person. What else? We also have another expression, which is in Spanish, merienda de negros. The translation would be a snack of Negroes. That would be the translation. And the origin of this expression is on the celebrations slaves made after working during the whole day. The current meaning of this expression is great confusion, disorder, and disaster. So all are negative. These phrases are used almost by everyone. What we can observe is that joking about the slavery of black people is completely socially accepted. Joking about the fact that for more than 400 years, 15 million men, women, and children were victims to the abominable transatlantic slave trade. If we think about the symbolism of these kinds of expressions, the implicit idea is that black people are inferior, so we can laugh at them, can laugh at you. As I wanted to say an example, because a phrase like working like a Jew could never be used as a joke.
That's right. That's right.
Like to talk about the Holocaust. Oh, working as a Jew, what funny. Never, never. It's terrible. What's the difference? The symbolic meaning of black. It's all these symbols that we have in mind, and it's terrible. So I don't know when touching. Oh my God! Anyway, so I also wanted to share something that we share in English and Spanish. Just to mention, because you know the meaning of all of them, but I really want to emphasize the importance of language. For example, black money, black market, which means illegal, without forgetting the verb blackmailing, that you know is a criminal act of coercion using threat. The black sheep, who is a member of a family or group regarded as a disgrace to it. In English, you also have the black swan, which is something unpredictable, a foreseen event typically with extreme consequences generally, but negative consequences. So all this symbolism surrounding the black color makes our brain connected with negativity, with something, with chaos, with crime, everything is negative, which would explain the racist behavior and thinking of society in general. We must not forget the meaning that has been given through history to flesh color, assuming that people who do not know are not human. We are going back to this Caucasian supremacy, the so-called Aryan race that I mentioned at the very beginning, that is still very present. For these reasons, I think that one of the things that we should start discussing is the term race, that we have been also mentioning just before me, since we are all part of the same race. There are no human race, and there are no more races. So I think this is the perfect place to start developing a new notion and stop thinking of different races, because we are all the same. So I think that's one of the things that we we should start changing, because as citing Edgar again, if we change the narrative, we change people's minds, and that's the thinking and behavior. So stopping using the term race as something negative, and it's I think one of the ways to do it. And I wanted to also mention briefly, because I don't know how I'm doing with time. Whew! What? Oh my God! Oh my God! I'm coming from Madrid. It's almost 9 hours from here. Thank you so much. I will go quickly because they are just some news. It's a different thing. I wanted to mention the very racist behaviors that people suffering in sport. That's a very recent piece of news, which is Vinicius Junior, which is one of the best players of Real Madrid, that probably you know, because in Spain we are known by soccer. That's the thing. However, whenever he goes to matches, he receives insults such as monkey, go to big banana. Very typical, they compare him with a monkey in every match. Fucking nigger, of course. And in 2023, before a football match, an effigy of Vinicius, a mannequin wearing his shirt, was hung on from a bridge near the stadium. 2023. The same year, I'm just summarizing what I have here, a child, a girl, was wearing his t-shirt, and he receives death threats and abuse. She suffered an anxiety attack at children 8 years old, just because of wearing his t-shirt. And I really wanted to mention a tattoo that he has on his skin. Says the color of the whole sentence is, as long as the color of the skin is the brightness of the eyes, there will be war. And I would really wanted to mention. I also wanted to mention that Spain won the European Cup thanks to black players. So racist people went crazy. Those were really proud of these players. Quickly, racism, it's every day, everywhere. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to mention that according to the United Nations, a black person is 42% more likely to be arrested than a white person. Furthermore, today we can still find many rental houses of drawn advertisement that say no vacancies for blacks, like in the past, well, in the present because of Trump. But we must not forget that Spaniards are not considered white by everyone, as you can see in this. So I really wanted to mention this because Spain is a special place to develop this symptomatic thought process, because it's what Edgar always says, who consider themselves white. I do not, for sure, but this thinking is really important here. And of course, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to mention of votes of African people arrive on the Spanish coast per year. I got so emotional. Thank you so much.
Questions. Our next presentation actually starts, I think, at 4. But what we're going to do is to see if we can get them on earlier. We're going to take maybe, we're going to try to get them on at 3:30. That is Edgar and Linda. So are there any questions for our 2 panelists who, okay, boy, they did a good job. Oh, here's one, Ronaldo.
My question is, can you all hear me enough without the microphone?
I'll bring it. Go ahead.
Should I
Just go to the recording.
Can I take this off? Take this off? Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. It was great. When you were talking, it brought to memory of how the United States government will kick out, when you brought up the Spanish example, they're even kicking out the white Spanish-speaking people to send them back to Latin America, but they want to consider white South Afrikaners as refugees to come here. And that's tied back to, I guess, to language, and that even though they phenotypically will be the same. And so when you talk about how even inside what they construct white, there are divisions. And it goes back to that de Gobineau thing where he said in Europe, they really create racism. If you got blonde hair, brown, and then black hair at the bottom, and that's why they didn't consider the people from the Mediterranean as real white people. And so, I mean, just seeing that, the way you explain it, I'm like, God, that's still a big deal. And so has it registered in Spain, that difference? Yeah, I mean, across the media, because we kind of just see it real viscerally now, like, okay, he doesn't want the white people from South America, but he wants the white people from Africa to come. Maybe because of Elon Musk. Has that registered? That's my question for you. And Dr. Langmia, that was great what you say. When I rode a plane from Africa, Air Morocco, I'm seeing like black and white films of racist films on there, and it's like the African people are all calm and not saying anything. That's why I'll never fly on Air Morocco again, because it's like they're just accepting it. I'm like, man, I mean, and you know, the little, where they were playing stuff from the era of the buckwheat and this kind of stuff on Royal Moroccan Airlines. And all the Africans I'm flying with are acting like that was totally acceptable in terms of the entertainment. And so that's the thing with that language piece that you brought up, Dr. Langmia. I'm like, until the link between language and nation and so forth, that's why I'm a fan of that brother in Burkina Faso right now, where he's making their lawyers, you can't wear the white wigs anymore like you're from England, and they got to wear traditional attire to try cases in court. Now, so I mean, the younger generation really seems to be pushing in that direction that needed to happen with Ngugi wa Thiong'o in terms of decolonizing the mind. And I want to hear from you. Do you see that generational kind of thing pushing that along in a certain direction? So, but both great presentations.
Thank you so much. Well, regarding my question, I must say that black people who arrive in these boats are not even considered refugees. It's terrible. No, it's not registered. I mean, it's like they don't count. They don't know people. That's the idea. It's terrible when we see on the news how they are jumping through the boundary between Morocco and Spain, and they have come from the south, from many African countries, and and it's nothing. I mean, I didn't mention because I was talking quickly, but apparently Spain has the most progressive government at the moment. We have a coalition of left-wing parties since 2018, and even though I mean this is happening. So it's terrible. I was talking about all of this with my auntie these days here, how when the Ukrainian war or conflict, or however you want to call it, happened, how we receive hundreds of refugees. They are considered refugees. They are considered people. Surprise. And they were... they receive money. They were accepted at the schools. They receive Spanish classes. Because they are white refugees. And that's the example I didn't want to mention, but it's the most clear example that we have at the moment. Basically, if you are white, doesn't matter if you are a refugee, if you are a football player, if the white part is first, doesn't matter. It's not about the money, it's not about your country of origin, it's because of skin color. And that's true. I mean, how many... people are dying every day, everywhere. Africa, many countries of Africa are in conflict, in wars during the whole history, unfortunately. And nobody has nothing in Europe, neither in the United States, but especially. So I know you are aware of all of this, but I really wanted to mention it because in Spain we are really in front of Africa, and by Europeans we are said that Africa starts in Spain. And like an insult, which would be actually would be so proud of it. But I don't want to talk more about it, but thank you so much. And she has a question.
Yeah, I will respond to him and then she can ask her question. Yeah. Yes, Chinua Achebe said that when the lions don't write their own history, the history of the hunt will conquer. What's happening on the continent right now? Ali Mazuri said, and I quote, "Drink deep or taste not the western spring," end of quote. Drink deep or taste not the western spring. Martin Luther King said religion is the opium of the people. It's no longer the opium of the people on the continent of Africa. It's a poison. Churchism has warped the mindset and the memory of the young people of the continent of Africa. That is why I struggle to decolonize their mind, my brother and sister. That's why I struggle to de-westernize their mind with the kind of research and Afrocentricity that we are trying to promote on the continent. And who are the people that are resistant much? The faculty. The faculty Western forms of education. And that's transmitting. Go to the dissertation defense that I sit. Students are just harvesting Western theories and planting them on the soil of Africa that will not germinate. And I tell them, how do you resolve the problem? What's the purpose of research? If you are talking about agenda setting, propaganda theory, spiral of silence that has roots in Euro-American tradition, that has nothing to do with Africanity or Afrocentricism. So that's why we are kind of a threat. But it's coming now because of Trumpism. Their mindsets. That's why they're welcoming us. That's why they're putting in the money now to have us as visiting professors. Because they now know that if you are not proud of what you have. Chinua Achebe said that the brothers, that they used to be together, but when the white man came, he put a knife on the thing that held them together, and now they are falling apart. He died in 24, things are still falling apart. This is sad. So this is my answer to you, brother. When I go to the libraries, and I go, especially me in communication, and I look at the catalog, black writers of communication like us, our books are not there. It's the same in geography, the same in chemistry, the same in biology. But we are bringing in that awareness. Because the colonial mindset, as I told you, not just decolonization, not just brainwashing, but brain dry cleaning. It is real. They wear suits under a hot sun.
All right, thank you.
I think that's some examples.
So we have the written list on.
Oh, okay.
After this comment.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I spent 6 months in Spain, Torrelimo, Reno, and I went to Morocco, and I did not know I was a student. I had to do there for my master's program, and I did not realize that I was supposed to be dressed a certain way, and I went across to Morocco and I got in trouble. But I realized that the people on Torrelimo on the beach and the Reno people, they were suffering just as much as the immigrants, and they were telling us not to go to certain places where the Asian Africans that were immigrants there, they were telling us not to go there, and they were saying the most horrible things about the Africans. But then when we went there, that was the best place. I tell people every day that Spain is the most racist country I've ever been to. I could not go get something for my hair because they kept saying, you know, these derogatory terms in Spanish, negro, negra, and it just felt bad, you know. So so how do you see, I mean, I know that you have these recent things, but have there been any changes, especially for the Spaniards that live there? In Reno, Torrelimo, I know Barcelona was wonderful, the people there are more progressive. Do you see any change or any parallel?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the question, and thank you for the example, because that's very clear. Actually, we have a cousin who have lived in Melilla which is where is the boundary with Morocco, which is this part. There has been a change, but by like here, by of society. I mean, those who actually are aware and really want to change things, we are doing it, but it's a very big part of society. Black people have proper positions, proper work. When I was, and he mentions the PhD, when I did graduation, no one was black. Not even mulatto or these kind of terms. Everyone was white. We were hundreds of people who get the doctorate 2 years ago. When I was starting reading Edgar's theory, and I was analyzing basically everything. Nobody was black. I mean, black people are still selling things on the streets. Whenever they want to find, they have studies. They don't have the chance because of their skin color. And if for example,
we have the written error, and we were just waiting until you finish.
Okay. I just wanted to finish with a quick example, which I saw. It was when I was in Erasmus. I was in England, and there, instead of writing your name and your surname, we were having also mentioning these westernized names. You write a number, so they don't know who you are. And I write my assignment, and when I received the mark, it was like the highest mark in the class. And when I was to pick it up, the teacher says, I didn't know you were black. And I said, well, me neither. First news, I didn't know. Just as an example, because of my English was good for the English Empire and all of this. And just an example of how we are perceived as well, how black is a symbol. Black color is a symbol. It's not even real. Am I black? I mean, it's a symbol. It's because I'm not the Queen of England, and that's it. Because I don't have that accent. Because I don't follow those ideas, etc., etc. And they said, I didn't know you were black because you had a high mark, you had good English, so you cannot be black. So just an example. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hi, Linda. It's so nice to see you.
Gracias.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. And after this, I can answer questions after, probably. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so all right, we are ready. We can can we hear Linda? Can we hear you and Edgar? Can you
hear us?
We got you. All right. Okay. All right. So it's your time. We have a wonderful session, and excited to bring on Edgar Ridley and Dr. Linda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll share our screen. You want to share the screen? Yes. Just a second. We need permission to share the screen.
Okay. All right. Where's the mouse at? There it is. You should get to do it now.
Okay.
Does it?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Good.
I want to thank Dr. Asante and the members of the MKA Institute for the opportunity to share my work. Dwelling on behavior, the starting point for the African continent. W.E. Deming, the world-renowned late consultant, made two powerful statements in his book, Out of the Crisis. The wealth of a nation depends on its people, management, and government more than on its natural resources. What is the world's most underdeveloped nation? With the storehouse of skills, knowledge contained in its millions of unemployed, and with the even more appalling underuse, misuse, and abuse of skills and knowledge in the army of employed people in all ranks, in all industries, the United States may be today the most underdeveloped nation in the world. Although Deming statements were prophetic, even he may not have, we would have not, we have our current state of barbarism with poverty and injustice looming globally. Dynamics that shape our world today must be understood and analyzed if we have to solve these monumental global problems. How did we get here? Every human developed a symbolic way of thinking out of a natural symptomatic environment. Natural phenomena such as sunsets, weather, the emotional experience of love, sorrow, hate, and greed were expressed as symptoms that are natural to all human life. When humans began to mythologize these phenomena, they developed into highly superstitious beings. That was the beginning of humanity's downfall and the downfall of the universe. That symbolic attitude produced religion and all rituals, which I coined a neurological misadventure. The neurological misadventure called humans to behave symbolically, engineering superstition, mythology, rituals, and racism. Indeed, racism is regarded today as not only a natural but necessary ingredient of human interaction. The recently departed Dr. Alvin Toussaint, the Harvard University psychiatrist, approached the American Psychiatric Association to get racism classified as a mental illness. The APA responded that they could not classify racism as a mental illness because, in their words, racism is the norm of American society. This symbolizing attitude has been the foundation of decision-making and behavior that has produced a truly circular existence. Solutions are never found. We mythologize as a way to mask real problems. Decision-making that is a symbolic, mythological base is destructive and has to be changed because of the continual symbolism that not only brings about the falsification of world history, but of behavior patterns that have their origins in symbolic thought, which originated in Africa. The total destruction of humanity is a given. There are only two ways of thinking and behaving in the world today: symptomatically and symbolically. The late anthropologist James George Frazer, in his classic The Golden Bough, showed that the mental habits of humans change very little from antiquity into the modern age. This is an important book. Modern humans are captive to the same superstitions that capitated the world in antiquity. I maintain that this phenomenon is driven by humanity's continually symbolizing attitude, which has produced symbolic behavior, leading to a barbaric civilization that is as vicious and outrageous as that of the ancient world. Our knowledge our knowledge base combined with our technology has allowed modern humans to create a system of mental and physical enslavement, where the majority of people do not even realize there are a captive population. Because of the ability of those in control to maintain mythology and the use of psychological technology to make simple systems operable. Those who classify themselves as white continue to be in control despite their minority status in the global community. The Financial Times provided an insightful view into the scientific studies being conducted on DNA studies in Africa. What we must realize is that only behavior changes can change the world. Behavior decides the economic position of countries vying for supremacy in the economic and military arena. We as an African people must change our behavior patterns if we are to avoid total destruction. The recent withdrawal of the United States from the World Health Organization, clearly because the leader is an African, he's an Ethiopian, indicates that a white supremacy is a rule of the day. We need to change behavior. This is an easy task, but we have been trained and that not only doesn't work, but causes great destruction throughout the global community. There is a considerable research that points to the impact of racism on African people. The Western world, comprised of the economic and military might in today's world, has absolutely no desire for a balanced civilization, where the so-called developing countries would be equal to all areas of human activity. Unfortunately, because of the symbolizing attitude of the West, they use a callous attitude towards non-white populations within the global village. A major impact of symbolic thought has to be the belief in magic. It must be understood that magic impacts the lives of all people in a most vicious fashion, especially where might is used as a tool to spread empower racism, to spread and empower racism. It is even used as a tool in medicine to mythologize diagnosis and treatment. A glaring example has to be the failure in accuracy diagnosis and treat sickle cell disorders because they predominantly are among African people. It has been suggested that the gene editing technique CRISPR can give us a more human world. The symptomatic thought process is a foundation that will enhance scientific discovery in unprecedented ways that will ensure technologies such as CRISPR will solve the world's problems. There is no doubt that culture transcends the genome and other aspects of biology. When symptomatic thinking and behavior is expressed in the culture of humanity, it takes behavior epigenetics to an unparalleled level, where the behavior of people in their environment shapes the genome and how it is practiced in unparalleled ways. That occurs when the transfer back to a symptomatic thought process and behavior is dominant in the culture. The dynamics of ancient DNA is secondary and always will be. It was secondary in antiquity and it will be secondary in the future. I want to make clear that behavior changes can only be accomplished to eradicate symbolic thinking. I repeat that. Behavior changes can be only accomplished if we eradicate symbolic thinking, which would eliminate a superstitious attitude. Then for the first time, we'll be able to work together and develop the great natural resources throughout Africa and African people. The only starting point is that for Africa is to solve our own problems, irrespective of differences that are natural and normal for all people who work together to better their lives. Now I'd like to turn it to my wife, Linda Ridley. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you very much. I'm going to change screens. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for sitting through a wonderful session. I'd like to thank Dr. Asante and the MKA Institute for this powerful tribute to my husband's groundbreaking work. We've had some powerful presentations today, and it gives me great pleasure to share my thoughts as well. Just a little about me. I'm the CEO of our global consulting firm, and we focus on change management using behavioral epigenetics, implementing Edgar's symptomatic thought process. In addition to consulting, I also teach at the City University of New York, also known as CUNY. Teach organizational behavior and leadership at the graduate level and introductory business and management.
Can you put your presentation in full screen for us?
Can you see it?
Just go to slideshow and put it in full screen.
Okay. Is that good?
It has changed.
I have slideshow.
Yep, it hasn't changed. We see your presentation, but we see the whole editing screen. Can you put it in slideshow presentation mode for us?
Yeah, that's what I thought I did. That the little thing at the bottom, right?
Yes. Or if you go to the top where it says slideshow and start from the beginning, that would work too.
Start where it says slideshow. Start from the beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're frozen. Can you stop and then restart your screen for us?
Okay, let's try that.
Yes.
That work?
That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just saying, before I went into consulting and teaching, I spent over 2 decades as a director of corporate and investment banking at Wachovia Securities, now known as Wells Fargo Advisors. I call that the dark side, but it's a data point that is relevant later. I'm very grateful for today's focus on the genius of my husband's body of work. It cannot be overemphasized that my husband has done something no one has ever accomplished, that of finding a solution to the collective problems faced by humanity. As his research plainly states, only by eliminating symbolic thought with a transition to symptomatic thought can we hope to solve the world's problems, to cooperation, collaboration, the elimination of racism and white supremacy. What is so exciting for today's audience is you are receiving an opportunity to experience what so many others have experienced over the past several decades. When we practice symptomatic thought, we learn how to dispense with the assumptions dictated by a white supremacy mindset. What do I mean by that? Although it's not uncommon for those of us in this gathering to have a so-called Black national scholarship, we often still succumb to the gatekeeping behaviors that are endemic within academia. The symptomatic thought process allows us to change our assumptions regarding what scholarship we value, freeing us from waiting for that white stamp of approval. The exciting trajectory of Edgar Ridley's scholarship is a living example. He is a true polymath, following in the steps of his professor, the great Cheikh Anta Diop. Historically, scholars have assumed that the symbolic thought process was a natural neurological process. Edgar's research has proven that to be incorrect. This has meant a powerful shift in the way we solve problems and behave in all areas of people activity. Edgar reminds us that racism and all other global, whether here the United States or Europe or Rwanda and the DRC come from a symbolic thought process and its resulting superstition, mythological decision-making, and religious wars. If any of you had the great opportunity of reading all of Edgar's books and papers going back several decades, you witnessed that his phenomenal research conclusions preceded areas of science that we are just now beginning to grapple with. We've been pleased to share the scholarship of Edgar Ridley on 4 continents. After unveiling his research in Europe before the World Bank and African Union, his services were requested to assist the Malaysian government with their productivity initiative. That turned into a 2-decade continuing relationship with the Malaysia Productivity Commission under the auspices of the Asian Productivity Organization, the APO. He was given the title of expert consultant. Edgar's scholarship was frequently published in the peer-reviewed journal of the Malaysia Productivity Corporation, known as Journal Productivity. Besides creating continuous content for MPC's training programs, Edgar was a recurrent trainer and/or keynote speaker at their productivity conferences. We're very proud to be able to say that Edgar's symptomatic thought process was integral in Malaysia's productivity growth in the 90s and 2000s. Simultaneous with this travel and output for our Asian clients, Edgar was, of course, still producing multiple volumes of his work. Coming fast forward into the 21st century, an exemplar of his continuing field research into human behavior supports his unique research methodologies. Edgar designed a field trip to Kazakhstan, Central Asia, to extend the firm's global research platform. This required an extensive itinerary, which ranged from substantive meetings with business and academia in Almaty, the commercial hub, to exploration of the apple forests in Sungarsky National Park in the Zungur Alatal Mountains, a protected area on the China border to the Soviet Union, requiring multiple government permits for entry. So you might ask, why a field trip to Kazakhstan? Edgar Ridley would tell you it is important to discern the similarities that occur among the world's peoples if we are to solve the problems of human behavior, whether in West Africa, Central or Southeast Asia, or the Americas. The damage wrought by symbolic behavior is evident among people. Indeed, we recognize called developing countries evolve, significant opportunities present themselves for collaboration and change management. As a global consulting firm, Edgar J. Ridley and Associates are on the cutting edge of these opportunities. Finally, since today's gathering is primarily academic, I want to briefly share with the scholars here today just one way you can incorporate a symptomatic thought process into your curricula to reveal the mythology and superstition within. For instance, my discipline is business education, so I conceived a quantitative study that examined why the disciplines of business and management do not acknowledge the tenets developed during the practice of chattel slavery. We drill students to absorb and recite the definitions of business terminology, much of what we see here in this word cloud, but we still exclude a review of the historical extremes defining property, control, and wealth. My study contributed to the field by drawing a through line from the brutality of chattel enslavement to those present-day management practices that include harassment, coercion, and cruelty. We only need to use our imagination to elicit some commonly known examples of present-day cruelty. One is certainly the recent global pandemic, when so-called essential workers were forced to work, many losing lives as a result, or perhaps investment banking interns forced to work 80 to 100 hours a week to pass muster. And we won't even mention Amazon. The significance of this research is profound when we consider that business students who learn fundamental tenets such as efficiency, effectiveness, productivity, innovation, are never told that enslaved workers, already regarded as mere property rather than human beings, were progenitors of those concepts. Edgar Ridley's symptomatic thought process enables faculty to acknowledge the connection between management practices during chattel slavery and present-day capitalism. Edgar Ridley allows us to see that developing a business curricula that ignores chattel slavery is a symbolic, mythological approach. The symptomatic thought process teaches us a new paradigm, a shift from symbolic thought to symptomatic thought, after which faculty will be liberated to confront the myths and omission currently within the texts of introductory business. This symptomatic approach to problem solving would acknowledge the origins of management practices and liberate business and management faculty. By receiving an honest instruction paradigm, students can proceed to management roles wherein they will no longer default to coercion and cruelty when running today's business. Put very simply, a symptomatic approach provides the opportunity to recognize the presence of mythology and superstition in your thinking practices.
And thank you so much for just allowing us to be, to have this conversation. You've started audience here. We don't see any. I think that means that you've explained it so well. There's one. Yes, sir, Brother Muti. Yeah, just a microphone. Yes.
Thank you, sister. I'm General Muti. First of all, your presentation was excellent. My question would be, I'm somebody who, I'm on the ground, boots on the ground, everywhere, all the time. And I have to take stuff like you and your husband give us, and through antithesis and thesis, synthesize it and see its practicality on the ground. Do you have, you and your husband, do you have a much more simpler or sort of like a training wheel textbook for sisters and brothers that I meet on a daily basis who may not have the time to read something as extensive as you and your husband have written, but to give them to basically whet their appetite so that they can understand how valuable the concepts and paradigms that you all put forth?
Thank you very much, Brother Muti. Excellent question. So, which book would you recommend for the simplest one?
I would recommend definitely An African Answer, The Key to Global Productivity.
All right.
First book published by Africa World Press. And that book is very popular in terms of being a fundamental source for African people to understand what's behind their power, behave in ways that is detrimental for the huge natural resources that's available in Africa. So African Answer, I think, is key to solving that problem for sure.
So and that's the one we would recommend. Answer. Okay, Brother Ramson, you had a question. Branson had a question. All right.
Hotep. Okay. Been kind of sort of analyzing the conceptions, and in my mind, I'm seeing. I could use the example of fire. Fire is good. I can cook some food. Fire is bad. I can burn the house down. Fire is not good. Fire is not bad. Fire is. It's almost like symbols. It depends on who creates the symbols and who utilizes who's utilizing the symbol. So the major symbology that is the worst use of this of symbology on the blue black, and yet you got thousands of black.
They have taken on the symbology of, but yet they have white Jesuses and they have white things all around. How do you deal with that? How do you take that out and really address this problem in that situation?
Let me be clear about this. Number one, we are enslaved. White people have enslaved us by these symbol systems, have enslaved the neurological processes of the brain by these using symbol systems. Another thing, there's really by these using symbol systems. Another thing, there's really no difference between the thinking processes of African people and the thinking processes of people in the states here. We have to stop seeking that stamp of approval from white educational institutions. People are the most hated people in the world, period. And the reason why, because they think that they can do anything to us, anything at all. And Africa is so filled with natural resources that white people who classify themselves as white can come in, take these deals, business deals, that's going to be very advantageous to the white populations and continue to have starving effects on African people. We have to stop seeking this white stamp of approval. And let me tell you this, the educational institutions in Europe and America is based on eugenics. And you know what eugenics is? The constant teaching of the inferiority of African people all over the world. And unfortunately, we do anything to say, oh, my child goes to Harvard, my child goes to Princeton. Mm-hmm. Those are the most racist institutions available. The best thing I did was go to Africa for my education, for my basic education. I went to Africa and was fortunate enough to study under the greatest scholar who existed, Cheikh Diop. And that experience enabled me
we wanted to talk
to
about
travel the world,
yeah,
and to do research in areas
Angela.
that we usually don't
Yeah, I know.
go to or study.
I know.
So the basic thing is we have to stop servants and slave. We're still in slavery to these educational institutions. I deal with scientists from all over the world, and their major aim, white people's major aim, is to eliminate African people. I'm amazed at the scholarship of Black people who still act like they're inferior because they've been educated that way. And I'm also shocked at when I talk to these MDs, PhDs, or what have you, they don't know anything.
That's right. That's what they've been saying all day today. We've been saying that.
So we have to understand that. And major thing, we have to work together as Black people and stop fighting with each other. We have to come together, and that's not happening, especially on the African continent.
That's right. Thank you so much. So, all right, that's the word of the principal.